Wicker Man 2006 for me is one of those late night movies I watched when I was about 18 years old. I really liked the movie then, and I didn't think anything about bad acting or Nicolas Cage in particular. Only later on I discovered that internet thinks this movie is hilariously bad, and that it has 3.7 rating in IMDb. Now I decided that it's time to revisit this movie, and I really hoped for the hilariosity everyone talks about. It was the sole reason I wanted to see the movie again and change my teenage dumbass opinion about it. But nothing of sorts happened. I was kind of disappointed because this really is an average movie. Nothing less, nothing more. And you may think that I'm completely nuts. How can I not see the absolute awfulness in this? But I'm not saying this movie is good either. I just don't see the 3.7 rating it has. And I watched the movie with my wife, and she also doesn't see anything special in this movie. So at least I'm not completely insane. If you're still with me, this is my very subjective review of this movie. I will spoil the movie, but you are probably not going to watch it because it's awful, right? Characters in this movie are pretty good. I think that Cage's police officer is interesting because he has a personality and backstory. Event of a family dying in a car accident traumatizes him, so he has to take time off his job, and he also uses some kind of antidepressants. But memories of this keeps haunting him while on his journey across Summer's Isle where main events take place. He also has a very righteous attitude which suits police officer, but clashes badly with Summer's Isle residents because they are completely unorthodox people. It of course serves well for this kind of movie. He may have been a little bit over the top, but nothing unimaginable. I can easily see a person like this existing in a real world, especially police officer. Sister Willow is Cage's ex-fiancée in this movie. She is a very good villain because she alone has this unexplainable aura about her that viewer doesn't know if she is the good guy or the bad. All of the other characters are hostile against Cage from the start, but she keeps playing these mind games until the very end. And Sister Willow is pretty convincing when she tries to convince Cage to help her. You have to bear in mind that they had been engaged in the past, so he definitely is vulnerable against her charms. Other good villain is Sister Summer's Isle. You may say that she is the queen of this island, and she has this sophisticated villain vibe around her. You know, the usual stuff about being friendly and sophisticated and telling all the history of the isle while walking through a beautiful garden. But still, undoubtedly a villain. I really like these kinds of villains. All the other sisters who live on Summer's Isle also are pretty good in their interaction with Cage. The characters are one of the good points in this movie. The thing you notice immediately about this movie is that it looks beautiful. It's a very scenic movie. I wouldn't say that cinematography by itself is spectacular, but simply that filming locations are great. You will probably not hear this anywhere else because everyone is too focused on how bad this movie is. The supposed island where the movie takes place looks very cool and also appropriate for the movie's plot. You can watch this movie to simply look at the gorgeous backgrounds. This is a very strong good point of this movie. There are also some great scenes, for example Sister Summer's Isle's room, which looks very interesting. I would like to mention that although the sets and attire looks pretty authentic, these must be a very naughty Amish sisters wearing so much makeup. This is not a complaint though, I just think it's worth mentioning. If you've seen trailer of this movie, I have to tell you that the actual movie is nothing like the trailer. The trailer may seem a little bit wacky, but movie itself gives completely different vibe than its trailer. When I watched this movie I thought that hostility against Cage's character happens too early in the movie. It is almost immediately clear that they all are hiding stuff from him. It is also clear for himself, so he acts hostile too. Usually in these kinds of movies this is more settled than here. This isn't too good in my opinion, but it's not the main thing why this movie is not so good. The main thing which lets this movie down is that it's a pretty boring movie. I can't even describe exactly why, because a lot of stuff happens actually, but it all seems like pretty pointless things. And that is not a plot hole, it is supposed to be like that, because Summersile's sisters are toying with the Cage character, making him run around in circles. Maybe it would be more interesting if I didn't know the outcome, I can't tell. And now let's discuss the elephant in the room. Or maybe it's not an elephant but bees. I may be crazy, but I don't see anything special in not the bees scene. I simply refuse to accept that this is considered bad acting. Yes, it may be a little bit goofy scene, but new Batman movie has goofier scenes, and no one is complaining about those. I also have seen people saying that it's ridiculous that Cage is screaming that bees are in his eyes. But there are no bees there, and yes, it's true. But it doesn't mean anything. They simply took the scene and then added CGI bees to it. It means that all complaints should go to editing, not to Cage in this case. But this works even in the way it is done. You see, Cage's character has allergy from the bees, so he is very afraid of them. I can easily imagine that he thinks that bees are in his eyes while they aren't. There is nothing special here. I also agree that CGI bees are not the best special effect in the movie, but it's completely fine for 2006. I've seen much worse CGI in movies. I also don't see all the supposed wackiness in other scenes. The craziest thing was Cage running around and beating up the ladies at the end of the movie, but no one talks about those scenes, however those are pretty crazy ones. Wicker Man 2006 follows the story of the 1973's Wicker Man. This is a remake of a classic, so you may think that the classic has the original story, but that is not true. The original Wicker Man is based on 1967's novel Ritual. Many great movies are based on books actually, but they are not original in this regard, and this story is pretty good. So basically there is a matriarchal society living on Summersile, and they practice paganism and sacrifices. Only very obedient men are allowed to live on this isle, but they'll of course need to reproduce in order for this society to survive. So women go to the outside world to seduce outside men to mate with them, and sometimes they need sacrifices. Cage character is one of those men, and he is lured on the isle to find his missing daughter. This is done by Sister Willow. Then all the running around the isle and search for the daughter happens. But it is meaningless because the girl is not missing. Sisters are hiding her from Cage, and he must go through this ritualistic search. In the end he is tortured and burned inside of a giant man made from wicker. The last scene is that Sister Willow with other sisters goes to a bar in the outside world to do this all over again. And that's a pretty strong ending. It has this classic horror movie message that it's not over. Wicker Man is a classic mystery, so once you know it, you know it. Mysteries are not good rewatches, and Wicker Man suffers from this because I really do think that it is one of the reasons which ruined this movie for me and made it so boring. I really don't know what happened to this movie that made it so famous and so seemingly bad. For me this now is a pretty forgettable movie, but it's not terrible. I give this movie 6 out of 10. Thank you for watching.